So as we're getting settled back in here, we have another quick video to start things off. We'll look back at session one of our biggest event from this past summer, the 2018 Junior Olympics. This is kind of a different look at some of the JO action. So take a look at this video here, and then we'll get on to the rules.
Got my own monster, nobody but me. I would never call him enemy. He's too bad God on me. Losing my boundaries, setting me free. All my dreams he speaks to me. He's too bad God on me. He's too bad God on me. Monster, he's the bad God I need. I got my own monster, he's the bad God I need. Monster, he's the bad God I need. I got my own monster, he's the bad God I need. Got my own angel, nobody but me. I would never call her enemy. She's the good God on me, holding me back, just when I need. And I don't dream she's teaching me. She's the good God on me, angel. She's the good God I need. I got my own angel. She's the good God I need. Angel. She's the good God I need. I got my own angel. She's the good God I need. But both are the same. Finding me, so angel, monster, bye bye. No. Both are the same. Bye bye.
So that was just a look at 4 days of JOs in about 2.5 minutes to give you an idea. And from there, we'll move things on to new rules. And this is obviously a topic of much discussion. So here to kind of break them down and explain how they'll be implemented within USA Water Polo, we bring back John Abdu.
Yeah, thanks. So I'm stepping in for Dale Newberger, who was here earlier, our FINA vice president, our representative. He had to step out, and he was going to take you guys through how we got to this point with the new rules and where we're at now. And then I was going to go after him and talk a little bit about our implementation that you guys have all in your packets right now, timing, descriptions. You guys all see them in your handbooks, except with one correction, an error I found earlier, thanks to Dan Way. Appreciate that, and we'll get to that in a second. But I think we've all been, a lot of people have been in the sport for a long time, we've all been through FINA rule changes before, right? So we've all been through this. We've kind of seen and been through a process where FINA decides that they want to go through some new rules. I think what's different this time around, and I think we, Bill and Adam and Chris and all of us who can talk to this, right? What's different this time around is that these are not an experiment anymore, right? They were experimented with, they were tested, they were analyzed, right? There's data to back it up, and there's this worldwide consensus that this is a direction that we're going in. And that being said, that's a much different process than I think FINA has used in the past. I think what FINA has used in the past at times is just try to throw some rules out there and then hope for the best. This is I can tell you that this has been a different process. That's one. And two, I don't think any of these rule changes are incredibly dramatic in the sense that you're going to have a hard time implementing them, right? These are things that should help speed up the game, should make it more fun to play, should be easier to referee, is the feedback we're hearing from all our FINA referees, right? It's an easier game to whistle, right? It's an easier game to play. So these are subtle changes that I think can help, and some of them are logical. So FINA decided to put some of this in this statistical comparison. So I'll share this with you guys now, some of the quick stats, and then we'll talk a little bit about where it's going. So they talked about speeding up the game, and they talked about all this group of experts that were involved in the process. There they are. So you see all these names of people who were studied, it was analyzed, it was put through this kind of rigor of trying to find out if this is going to work or not. And the events that it was tested at this past summer were the Youth World Championships, both Youth World Championships, and then also both Senior World Cups. Both of the World Cups, the Women's World Cup and the Men's World Cup, both played with these new rules. And so many of us were there to watch and observe and also be a part of this, right, including Adam, as you see him on there. So these are the events that we had talked about, these things happening. They've used them in LEN. They experimented in LEN at the same time. And this is some of the things that came out over 260 games, right? 520 hours of data collection. Again, I think a much more reasonable process than what they've done in the past. And here's some of the things that you get out of it. We talked more about this in terms of the speed of the game. This generalizes into athlete safety, and it generalizes into how the referees are being watched and used. One thing that FINA decided to do immediately that we haven't talked about yet was actually do post-game evaluations of the referees. Believe it or not, after during all those years, and the FINA referees can attest this, that they were not given an evaluation after the game. And when I mean evaluation, I mean a meaningful evaluation that involves video and video breakdown and analysis of the games. That's actually now happening after each one of these games, which is incredibly helpful. And they won't admit it, right? But we've been doing this in the NCAA for many years now, right, on our level. But it was a good idea that they took from us. So the difference in terms of like where the ball is in terms of swimming, there was a positive upward trend, right, of how many possessions now per game. A lot of that comes from the shot clock. Right, there was a 24% increase. I put that in your packet as well in goals scored. Right, 24% uptick in amounts of goals scored. They're going under the theory that more goals scored, more fun. Right, more shots taken. Sorry, clicker's moving a little slow. Shots from the counterattack. When they say speed up the game, right? When they say speed up the game, there's a 68% increase in terms of shots that came from counterattack. Whether or not the goal was scored or not, right, is not part of the analysis. The part of the analysis is saying that at least we're seeing more counterattack opportunities, which is what we want to see. We want to see more fast breaks. We want to see fast break opportunities coming through the course of the game. Another positive trend. Successful counterattacks, right? Then if you're gonna have 68% more counterattacks, you're gonna score more of them. So I think this was a logical statistic. Shooting efficiency, right? Seeing that these numbers went up. Shooting efficiency of the women also went up 15%. So now you're seeing the more shots being taken, but you're also seeing more shots being scored. And this is where it starts getting interesting, I think, for me, or relevant for us, right? Is that you're going to start to see that there's less whistles. That's one of the opposite slides that's going to be coming up here. So you've seen less fouls, less contra fouls, right? And we'll talk about why in a second. And you also see that there was a 34% increase in ordinary fouls. To me, again, that's better, right? No offense to the referees in the room, but the best refereed games in the world, right, are ones where we don't notice the referees, right? We don't want to notice the referees. But if we hear the referee constantly, right, in the course of the game, and you have to blow all these ordinary fouls, they become an integral part of the game. So 34% less ordinary fouls, again, over the course of 260 games, right? So just know that the sample size is that we're talking about. It wasn't a weekend, right? 260 games over the course of a year where these things were developed. So it's 34% there. Come on. And overall, 24% less whistles in the game as well. Right? And that includes exclusion fouls, includes all those things. Part of this will come too if you're playing a roster with 11 people. Right? If there are 11 men or women on the roster, right, you're going to be less inclined to foul because when you start getting into foul trouble, all right, quickly in these games, this is one adjustment I think FINA has not made yet. Right? And we have to think about this a little bit. How do 11 women or 11 men play an 8-minute period, full-on Olympic water polo game with one of those being a goalie, right, and having 4 substitutes in what we proudly proclaim as the hardest sport in the world, right? There's a disconnect, right? A little bit of a disconnect, but in that scenario, you're still going to have to try to play this game and not foul out, right, in this, and that's where I think some of this happened, if you want to know some of the meaning behind that. More exclusion fouls. I think where this came up is that instead of less ordinary fouls, but a little bit more exclusion fouls, right? So you're punishing bad behavior more, hypothetically, with these statistics, right? And then one of the rules we'll talk about is that this inside the 6 meter, inside the strike zone, right, where things more liberally interpreted as a penalty. Obviously, we saw a huge uptick there. We'll talk about that and why we're waiting a little bit more to implement that later. That's one of the ones we're going to wait till January 1st of 2020 to really put into play, just so we can see how that interprets itself out. It's a little vague as opposed to these other things that are much more concrete. And the fouls per player per game, again, down a little bit. This time interval without faults in seconds, basically what they're saying is you've gone through a period of time where there wasn't a foul, but the game is being played, so more live action, as they wanted to say in this. And this 5-meter shot versus 6-meter shot, right? Now, again, for a lot of people watching the game and analyzing it, that 5-meter line was a place where it was a lot of confusion, right? There was a lot of time in that 5-meter line where people were aggressively trying to earn an ordinary foul at the 5-meter line. And this caused undue confusion to the referees, to the spectators of someone sitting at the 5-meter line, pounding their head in the water, hoping to get a foul right through this. And that's one of the things they try to avoid. So moving this back to the 6-meter line and allowing the player to be live after a foul at 6 meters, I think open that up a little bit. The penalty shot will still remain at 5 meters. So there will still be a 5-meter line. Penalty shot remains at 5 meters, but this idea of shooting a direct shot comes from the 6-meter line beyond that. So you see in the women as well. And this video referee assistance, this is what I talked about. Finally in FINA, they're starting to implement this where they're getting a little bit more eyes on the referee from different angles and in fact, they're using dartfish, which I know a lot of the college conferences have been using, right? Things like dartfish, things like sports code, which a lot of our coaches use. That's what's going on. From their perspective, from the FINA perspective, they think that there's a domino effect. We've got a faster game. The flying substitutions, we didn't mention that part, but a little more exciting part of the game. I'm going to get to that in a second. More offense, faster game, and then the last thing I'll say about what they were trying to get out of this is that they were also trying to get the game within an hour time block. Because if FINA can get the game in the hour time block, it becomes much more of a TV-friendly product, right? No TV network is going to want to say, we want this thing for an hour and 15 minutes, right? A TV network wants to say, can we get this game in 60 minutes so we can put it in our programming right away? And that was a big feedback that FINA received and we've received from NBC and from other major networks that have tried to broadcast our games in the past or have broadcast our games in the past. So that's the end result of that. I'd like to go rule by rule a little bit so we can get a little bit of clarification on it. And as I'm sure you guys have a lot of questions on those. Thank you from FINA to you. But if we can get to the next slide here, we can start talking about those one by one. Yeah, here we go. And this is in your packets, so whether it's up here or not is irrelevant because you have it in front of you, right, on paper. So the first thing I want to talk about, the first one we'll talk about is the 20-second reset on the shot clock. So we did two things in the breakdown that you have in there. One, we went through the rule, we explained the rule, and then we put the date of implementation for each age group underneath it. If you keep going in the packet, we've separated it out by age group. So you have a quick kind of cheat sheet chart. Like if you're more interested in masters or you're more interested in age group or ODP, then you can take that cheat sheet out and know exactly what you're looking for at that age group, okay? The reset of the 20-second shot clock. And I want to also thank our national referee manager and our referee coordinator, Levon and Tiffany, right, for being helpful in this and producing this document and getting this information out for us. And they're up here as well and have had to referee these games with these rules. So if any of you want to talk to them about the referee perspective afterwards, they had to do this during our exhibition series and deal with this as well. So we're talking about resetting the shot clock to 20 seconds on a tip out. So this is similar to the NBA, right? NBA, they reset the shot clock to 14 seconds, right, off of a shot instead of back to 24. Similar concept, reset up to 24. You're never going to take time away on the reset of the shot clock. I've been getting that question a lot. So meaning, if for whatever reason your athlete decided to make a bad decision and take a shot within the first 3 seconds of a new shot clock, right, and there's 27 seconds left on the shot clock and the ball gets tipped out, there'll still be 27 seconds left on the shot clock, right? You're not going to take time away to go down to 20. But if the shot is taken under 20 seconds, right, then you get 20 seconds back up. That makes sense? Biggest question we're going to get on this, and we talked about this yesterday in our smaller session. How will our timing systems, how will our equipment respond to this? So first and foremost, this is one of the rules that we're waiting out till January 1st of 2020 to implement, because we realize it's going to take some time for everybody to get their equipment online, right? So we're giving everybody enough time to do this. Secondly, Tiffany and others in our office have been working directly with Colorado Timing Systems, right, to come up with a beta system. And I said this again yesterday, during the men's games, men's games against Italy in our exhibition series at the end of December. If any of you watch those online, we were using a beta system, a Colorado beta system, to reset to 20 during that time. And that was the beta system they put out for us. And as far as I know, Tiffany, correct me if I'm wrong, all systems go to hopefully have a download on this in the next few weeks, correct? Okay. Okay, I'll repeat that. So it will not work for Colorado System 5, right? It'll work for Colorado System 6 and up, and for the tabletop. So it won't be on the toggle, right? It'll be a button, and a free button on the tabletop that we used again in those games and seemed to work out well for us at the time. Again, this is coming from Colorado in the next few weeks, but we're also giving everybody the year to figure this out, right? Everybody take time to get the equipment. We realize not everybody has a Colorado System 6. If you have a Daktronics, the Daktronics are editable, so you can edit to those anyway, right? With the Daktronics, you don't necessarily need that. The harder part was with the Colorado system, and again, we'll have time to implement that out. And again, the thing that came with it, the rationale behind the 22nd was, hey, it's a faster game, right? We all know as coaches that anytime we got a new shot clock, there was patience, and we all waited around for 10 seconds to attack, right, in the new possession. This gets to the attack right away. It also, at the end of the 6-on-5, gets to 20 seconds, and you're out right away, from there. Should I take my time? Questions on that before I move on? I'm guilty of talking fast, I've heard. So I want to make sure I take my time. Yeah. Second, the location of the free throw shall be taken at the spot of the ball. So currently in high school and college and NCAA here in America, the ball is live at the spot of a contrafoul, right? It takes it one step further, that wherever the spot of the foul is, that's where the ball is live and in play, right? And so we've had here in the States, and I think this is again where they got the idea, right? We've had a lot of success seeing this on the NCAA and the high school level where the ball was live at the contrafoul, keeps the game moving. That's part of the uptick in the counterattack goals, right? Now you're being more punished for committing that contrafoul on the perimeter. You don't want to do that and give up the counterattack the other way. So again, now the ball's live anywhere. Exclusion, ball's live. You don't have to have the referee. This is, I think, another reason why the whistles are down. Blow the whistle repeatedly 20 times to put the ball back to the goalie, right, to get the ball then live again, right? So this pushes us forward a little bit fast that way. So in that rule, not much to adjust. I think this is the easiest one of all the rules. This is the easiest one for us to adapt right away since we've mainly been doing this already. So we'll start this right away, right? We'll start this right away March 1st. We'll get everybody going, and I think that's a much more palatable rule. Corner throws. Player taking a corner throw may shoot directly or swim and get themselves live on the corner throw, right? Get themselves live on the corner throw. So either, the corner throws are rewarded, and we saw this a few times in World Cup, where the athlete can just shoot right away, right? Direct shot from the corner, goalie's not paying attention, can be a goal, or you're putting the ball live and then you're attacking forward and you're immediately in live into the game. On this one, we'll take our time a little bit because it is confusing for all of us to pick up and give athletes time to go. You'll see it in National League and ODP and different things like that. But when it comes to sanctioned events, we'll give ourselves until January 1st to get that going permanently. The additional substitution area, this one's, I think, a little more exciting. This is what was kind of referred to in your packet as well as like flying substitutions, right? And there will be an asterisk by this rule. This is where the athletes are allowed to come up to half, right, in the water, in a sideline, and be able to substitute themselves in the game. And the way this works technically, again, correct me if I'm missing any piece of this. You can only go up to half. The player exiting the pool must come under the lane line, right? Full body under the lane line, give a high five, right? Slap hands, wherever you want to call it, right? To their teammate, and then the player can re-enter the game under the lane line that way, right? That's what must happen. Now, the reason we put an asterisk by this rule is because I know what everyone's thinking is the first thing I thought. What happens if you're in a pool without sidelines? What happens if you're in a pool with wall cages? What happens if your pool doesn't allow for this? Then the rule doesn't exist, right? So the asterisk is this rule is only in play if and only if the course allows for this to happen, right? So if the course allows for it, we'll make it happen. For me, when you watch the senior teams using this, and I was talking to some of you guys yesterday, with all the senior team events we saw this summer, wasn't used all that often, right? It was used generally in a situation where the center gets really tired, right? Generally, I was a center, I get it, right? Like, you can only play 2-3 minutes at a time, right? So then after those first 2-3 minutes, and now you're in minute 4, and you got to substitute, instead of having to go all the way to the corner, now you can come up in half, and the player from the substitution area, right, must still enter from the exclusion box and swim across the side. So you may not have to lose a possession to sub your center out in this situation. I think club coaches, high school coaches, when they have this rule, they'll start getting creative, and I think we'll see some new things that kind of come with it as we go. I saw the image of like 12-year-olds, 13-year-olds, 14-year-olds. I think this will be kind of fun for them, right? Coming under the lane line, high five, get right back in the game, keeps things active, and you won't need to use more timeouts to substitute. So I think on those younger age groups, this is good for them, right? Get them moving, get more kids playing in the game without having to wait for a goal. So you'll see this. This is where I made a mistake in your packets. So it says here, National Age Group Championships, January 1st, sanctioned events, January 1st. We're actually going to allow this on March 1st, right? So we're going to allow this on March 1st. So immediately we're going to allow this. I made the mistake here. It's correct in the chart at the end. So again, I really just want to make that clear. And the charts at the end, right, it should be March 1st, 2019. And on the front here, I had it as January 1st. But again, if and only if the course allows for this. Right? Yes? Go ahead, Ray. Sorry. Correct. The exclusion box, yeah. They must enter there and then swim. Imagine this is the exclusion area, right? They must enter, then the bench is behind us. They come off the bench, they go into the exclusion area, swim up to half if they want, or anywhere along the way, and that's where the substitution occurs, right? This is to avoid the athlete coming from the bench, running, right, along the deck, jumping in, and then substituting from there. That makes sense. Yeah. Yes, ma'am. Correct. And it's similar to like coming even. The referee's watching, but they're not saying, the referee's not the one waving you in, the table's waving you in, right? But the referee's going to watch, and if the high five didn't happen or was the substitution happened inappropriately, right, then exclusion would be called. These are good questions. At the moment, it's the referee's responsibility to watch that stuff. Yep. Yes, Andrew. I will speak for Tiffany and Levon here, but I'll let you guys say, I think when instructing the referees, we want to be lenient in all of this. We're giving everybody, right, about 5-6 weeks to understand these are new rules, and then I would think there's a time period where we'll be gracious, particularly at the age group level, right? Particularly at the age group level. We want, I've said this before in front of this group, right? Our referees should be just as much teachers as they are adjudicating the rules that are in the game, right? They're helping teach our young people how to play this game. Good questions, though. All right, we can move on. Interval at halftime. They took this, which is not a huge change, but a 3-minute interval at halftime. Right, we'll have that in play at most of what we're doing. No big change. Method of scoring. This is the more complicated one. The 6-meter line. Right. So the 6-meter line. Again, 5-meter line is still there for the penalty. What everybody has currently, nobody has a lane line course that designates a 6-meter line. Right. Nobody has that. I guess you can call anti-wave and you can make one and do it that way. But at this point, what everybody did, even internationally, was just put a cone at 6 meters as needed. And the cone then designates that area, right, where you can then become live. Again, the way the rule is written, if you draw a foul outside of 6 meters, you are able to put the ball in play. You got to literally put the ball in play, right? So it's different than the NCAA, which is any water polo movement puts the ball in play. That's still a discrepancy, right? In NCAA, it's any water polo movement. Here in FINA, right, you got to put the ball up in play, and for us, so that you can actually be seen, right? And now you're live, right? Moving forward, you can shoot anytime. Yeah, Brian. It hasn't been specified, right? So again, I'd like to give some time for this one. So this one more than, Brian, I would say on this one, where is it up there? Almost across the board here, we're not implementing this one until January 1st, right? So this is one that we're taking our time on. You'll see it nationally. You'll see it in ODP. I want our ODP kids to experiment with the rules they're going to play with internationally. But this one we're taking our time because I'd like to see where this goes, right, a little bit, and how it in place. Now, it's made for a much more exciting game. I think this is one of the rules I think most of the coaches across the world have been more in favor of. The reason I believe ordinary fouls went down because of this rule is because it's no longer such an advantage to commit the ordinary foul on the perimeter, right? So this is one of the things that drives us nuts about water polo, right? It's the only sport in the world where a foul is a good thing, right? Where fouling is good. Foul, 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 right? And you hear coaches yelling foul as if it's a good thing. That's the first thing my parents said to me, like, why is everyone telling you to foul someone? I thought that was bad, right, when I was playing. But you foul and you're rewarded because I foul Peter, right? Now he can't do anything with the ball. The second I foul him, he can't do anything with the ball. And now, if we're fouling people outside the 6 meter line, he can put himself live, and now he's in the game. So now I'm not being so rewarded for that play, right? Yeah, Pete. Yeah. You can still do the direct shot. Yeah, you can still, if you're fouled outside of 6 meters, you can still have a direct shot. So it's the same as the corner throw one I described earlier. So the second the referee says, you're live, or puts the ball in play at the corner throw, you can shoot direct immediately. Correct. Yeah, Casey. Correct. But now you're not going to go all the way back, right? Which then does open up the center play a little bit, right? So now with the 5 meter line and the crowding around the 5 meter line, there wasn't a lot of room for driving, not a lot of room for that. So this has opened up more driving lanes, right? Opened up more space in front of the goal, right? So that's helpful too. Someone else had their hand up? Yeah, Chris. Absolutely. Yep. Correct. And that's another bonus of it, right? Yeah. So now you're not encouraged to just foul somebody in transition and just stop what they're doing. Yeah. And again, there's going to be a lot of questions about this. Is why we're taking our time, right? In January 1st, I think you'll see it in some places, National League, ODP, and things so that we can get an idea of it. We'll see our national leagues playing with it. But again, January 1 is not that far from now, right? And we'll be on this, and then we'll go from there. Yes. Right. Correct. They can be repressed. They can get back on the ball. Yep. Okay. Correct. Yes, sir. Yep. All right. Yeah, Nick. This is outside of 6, right? Yeah, this is outside 6 meters, right? Outside 6 meters. These are good questions, though. It's good to clarify. You got to put the ball in play. You got to play. So you're either going to take the direct shot, or you're putting the ball in play, and you're live and you're going through. Right. Well, you're not. The ball's not live at that point. Yeah. Mhm. Mhm. Right. No, swimming with the ball is putting the ball in play. So look, I get fouled, right? I pick the ball up, I put the ball down. That's me putting the ball in play. I'm not swimming. Now the ball's live, right? So that one is clear cut, right? That one's clear cut. What it's in the larger description of the rule. What will be in the rule book will be that you must put the ball into play. Am I correct? Mhm. Yeah, and I think it's a fair point, right? And I think when we still have to update our rule book, right? When it's in there, and I'll have the exact terminology that would say how, particularly how the ball goes live, right? At that time. Correct. Yeah, this is just strictly outside 6 meters. Yeah, correct. Yes, sir. Yeah, nothing changes. Only outside of 6. Yeah, only outside. Okay. Okay, that one's done. Moving on to the next one. Goalkeeper, right? The goalkeeper privileges. I think a lot of coaches have been asking this one for a long time. Why in our sport it's different than in other sports? So this kind of mirrors other sports that have a goalie, right? Other sports that have a goalie allow the goalie to cross half. So it's giving that goalkeeper privilege a chance to cross half and also be involved in penalty shootouts, right? So again, a little more like ice hockey, a little more like what is normal. That's why when I prefaced all of this with I don't think these are very dramatic, right? I think this gets us closer to normalcy, right? We were pretty far from normalcy before, and this is one small step forward into doing that, right? Questions there? You guys see the timeline on that? I think that one's simple for us to implement right away, and so you'll see that one pretty quickly. Timeouts, no more than a team is entitled to no more than 2 timeouts per game. You also got to remember when we do this at our events, you'll have this where some tournaments have no timeouts, some tournaments have 1 timeout, right? Some tournaments have other timeout rules. Tournament directors will still have some discretion, right, in what they do. And you want to get through a 20-game day at your pool, I get it, right? You can do what you can do, but no more than two per game. And this is different than the 1 timeout per quarter, right, that was happening in the last quad with FINA. And this is the one that I said would take a little bit longer, this Rule Amendment 9 about attacking a player from behind in 6 meters. That one's a lot more subjective, right? So we're going to take our time before implementing this one in January 1st. But essentially with this, the goal of this was trying to say that if a player is attacking inside 6 meters, they have inside water, they're facing the goal, they're going to attack, the defender's behind. What the FINA was wanting to get away from was referees doing this. While they were holding the ball, right? Even though you clubbed their head and ripped their suit off, they were holding the ball, so no penalty called, right? And so now what we're trying to say is, look, if there was a foul occurred, it's inside 6 meters, there's a probable goal, go ahead and call a penalty. That's why you saw that skewed number of 154% increase in penalty shots, right, being awarded in their sample size of 260 games, right? Was because more penalties were called. Now, early in that, referees immediately said to themselves, I can call a penalty anytime I want, right? Anytime 6 meters. So it became very liberal early on. And then as the summer progressed, then we got to the World Cups. By the end of the summer, you started hearing the instruction be like, well, slow it down. They still have to earn it, right? Let them go. So again, we're going to take our time and really clarify this before we start telling our referees, call every penalty you see inside 6 meters, okay? But just trying to explain their train of thought, right, of where they're going with this was taking away that violence and the indiscernible reasoning, right, you have of the ordinary fan watching a water polo game saying, why did that person get fouled and nothing was called, right? So again, we'll take our time, and as we get more information on that in the year, we'll see how it goes and how we can best implement that for our usage here. Yeah. No, it's more of the attacking inside water, right? And really, the more the spirit of the rule was like, I have inside water, I'm attacking the goal, right? I'm facing the goal with the defender behind. Yeah. You have 2 questions, you said. Yeah. Yeah. So head positioning. The question is, what's defined as behind? It was the defender's head, right, in that situation. Yes. No, Yeah, but they're saying with the ball in hand, you can still, if you can go for the elbow and hit, and this happened, right? Ball in hand, you hit the elbow, the ball falls out of their hand, no call, right? The difference is I pull that arm back, and the offensive player didn't let go of the ball. Then they would call a penalty in that situation, right? Because that's you're now going against the rules, hold, pull, sink, right? In that, yeah, Richard. Right. What you're describing is that gray area, right? And that's why we're taking our time, right? We've heard different interpretations from FINA on this, and I want to be clear: our referees are not going to be instructed to implement this rule this year, right? Till we get more clarification from FINA, see this in action a little more than just the 260 games, because clearly, even within the 260 games that they tested, it did not produce sound results, right? Of what we think would be the right thing to do. Yeah, fair enough. It's a wait and see situation for that one. We'll see if it helps. If it helps, we'll bring it back to the table and talk about it. Last one is the direct shot signal by the referees. I think this has been helpful too. We'll do this right away. They've been doing this on the college level, correct, already in the NCAA. For those of you guys who play or coach in the NCAA, if you are fouled outside of 5 meters, the referees are instructed to point, right, to say that you are outside. Similar to the NBA, you see a 3 go up and a 3-point shot go up. The referee puts their arms up, right, so everybody knows it's a 3-point shot. In the NCAA right now, the finger goes down. Say in NCAA water polo, we're saying you're outside 5 meters, you're allowed to shoot. So we're bringing that over to USA water polo now too, so that everybody can. It's clear to everybody, and the athlete knows they can. If they receive that foul, they can look up, right, and know that they're in there. It'd still be 5 meters for us in some situations, so we're not implementing that 6 meter line until January 1st. Yeah, so we're going to take some time there. Yeah. Questions on that one? Yep. Yeah. Correct. Yeah, 6 in National League ODP and things like that. And that's, to be honest, 2 things, right? I'm glad you brought that up. In ODP and National League, these are things that are directly related to our national teams, right? I think it's good for us to experiment with these things now before it goes to the broader public, right? So if there are things that we can learn and some learnings that we can take from these things, from National League and ODP, we'll bring it to the table by January 1st, right? Last thing I'll talk about, because I talked about this 2 years ago. 2 years ago at this assembly, right, I made the comment to everybody that I thought the 12 and under goal was too big, right? That an 11-year-old girl should not be playing in the same goal as Ashley Johnson. I thought that was sound logic, right? I thought that was reasonable to say. That was a reasonable problem for us to attack. So some of you guys in here and across, we've been experimenting with different goal sizes across the board. And we found a range that seems to be suitable for this age group, right? And I put that in there. It's about 2.5 meters in width and 0.8 meters in height. And when I say approximately, Jose, we helped in this a little as well, right? We all experimented this at different times, where it can be a range. Some it might be 0.1 meter off this way, or you might use an inflatable versus a hard goal. Those things aren't going to matter as much as us having an age-appropriate goal, right, for this age group, right? So if there's a little bit of a range in there, it's fine, just not too extreme. FINA has also recommended this as well. It's essentially the same size goal as like a beach water polo goal, right? Same size goal as a beach water polo goal. Can be used for a number of different things, and you're going to see them if those of you guys bring teams to Rocktober this October, right? You'll see us. We'll have courses set up there in Mesa, Arizona, right? With these courses, and we'll try to get them into JOs as soon as possible. But I just think this is the right thing for the athletes and their development. The only other thing I'll say about these goals is I say 12 and unders, or this thing. I'm going to call it, or we're going to call it, the intermediate size goal, right? Because I would also venture to say, and having lived outside of California or in different developmental areas in my life, it's a goal that can be used for brand new water polo players, right? So if you have a middle school league and 6th graders or 7th graders, right, and they're just learning the game or just getting going, it wouldn't be a bad thing, right, to get them started on this. So it can be used for multiple reasons. All right. So, questions on that or anything I can clarify? Essentially, yeah. Now the 10 and under, it's essentially the same size, and then the argument then becomes: do you want to use the blow up goal for the 10 and unders, or hard pipe goal, or be a little off? Yeah. 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 Let's go back. No, so that's what I clarified. So that was my mistake. Yeah, March 1st for all that. Yeah. So that's what you want to correct in there. That's the one mistake I made. Yeah. In there. Yes, sir. Correct. JO's Champions Cup, right? Things like that. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. So that 2.15 and a size goal, right? For this, they also use that at international events around the same age groups. Yep. That's the FINA recommendation down. Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. At this point, we're going to try to do it, right, for JOs, but part of this is us finding costs. I'm staring into the light. Yeah. Yeah. I don't think we have enough time to buy 24 goals, as needed, for that time. So if you put in the packet in there, it's 2020, right? That we're shooting for, and you'll see it at Rocktober will be the first time that we kind of have it at one of our championships, the different size goal. Yep, fair enough. Yeah, Casey. Yes. So it's a very good question. Thank you. I should have brought that up. I know I'm getting the hook here soon. So one. NCAA rules are I just want to make this really clear. USA Water Polo does not control the NCAA rules, right? So I hope we all know that, right? That's one. So NCAA rules are governed and done by a different committee, right? They have graciously invited me to the table after years of begging to be at the table at the NCAA rules committee meeting, and that'll be in December, right? That's in December. So they are on 2-year rule cycles. The NCAA is on 2-year rule cycles. They are at the next year. Sorry. They're in year 1 right now. Year 2 is next year, right, of that cycle. So meaning they're going to have their meeting in this December of 2019, to discuss any rules that would be put in place for the following collegiate year. My hope is, after another year of seeing how this goes with our events, taking the FINA data, that all at the seat of the table, we can come closer to unifying the rules, more closely here. My feeling is most of them, all of them, pretty common sense, keep the game flowing. That I would hope and pray, if anybody's in here can lobby, that they would adopt most of them too. But we'll tackle that battle in December. Yeah? So good. NFHS generally follows the NCAA. So really the key is the NCAA lobbying, and then NFHS generally follows. Levon's actually on the NFHS rules committee as well, right? Is that a fair statement for me to make? Yeah. So NFHS would. And then NCAA would have to make that change first, right? And then they would go from there. Okay. All right, if you guys have any questions on this stuff, again, we keep going. But I do think this is progress, right? I do think it's progress. It's some fun stuff. I'm looking forward to seeing some flying substitutions, right? And the ball being live. Some of these things will be really helpful for all of us as we play and try to referee the game. But if you have any other questions or any clarifications, please don't hesitate to pull myself, Levon, Tiffany, or anybody aside. We can talk about it. Thanks.
Thanks, John. And to that point, on our website on usawaterpolo.org, we'll have a story up later today that kind of just shares that full document. So if you need to reference it again or want to share it with somebody else, in addition to what you have in the packet, kind of just that breakdown of explaining the rules and how they'll be implemented and when they'll be implemented, and all of that good stuff. Now we're getting on to just about the end here of our assembly portion, but time for Q&A. So we have a whole bunch of questions that were sent in and dropped off. So we want to ask Chris and our board of directors to come on back up here, and I'll go through these questions as we receive them, and then we'll break down the answers, and we'll go from there. We'll hopefully get through all of them here. All right, so I'll just kind of start with these, and folks here up on the stage as I read them, if you want to jump in and take it, that'd be great. So the first one has to do with categorized under athlete safety. This is in regards to goalies being permitted to wear helmets during games, potentially making it mandatory for kids under a certain age to wear while in goal and even in practice. And it looks like some high school, let me see here, some high school water polo players want to play, sorry, it's the next question. Okay, so we're going to start first on goalie helmets. Thoughts on this, being permitted to wear them during practice and in games?
Yeah, I'll take a crack at that. So they are permitted, unless your coach says no. But I mean, you should be permitted for goalies to wear one of these rubberized helmets. And there's some that have been approved, and you should be able to wear them in games. One of the things that we asked Levon to do, where did Levon go? Was to clarify for all the referees out there around the country the fact that it is okay to wear these padded helmets. That said, helmets, at least related to concussion, generally there have been a number of opinions regarding concussions happen because of movement of the brain within the skull. So if helmets stopped concussions, there would be no concussions in pro football, right? Because it's the movement of the brain within the skull. So the general medical opinions have been that this is not a factor in the concussion side of it. But the important thing is kids can wear helmets underneath the cap, and those kinds of helmets are available for people to wear, I should say, headgear. They're not really helmets because they're padded. The referee does have discretion, but one of the things we wanted to do was make it clear to the referees that they had the right, that kids should be able to wear these. The only cautionary is if they create a damage. For example, if it was a helmet, like heavy metal with spikes coming out of it that could injure somebody else, that would be bad. So you can't wear something else in the water that could injure another player, potentially. Exactly. In terms of mandatory, we don't have plans for that at this time, but it is at a discretionary basis for younger players. They can wear them in practice or in games, and the referees are getting additional instruction to make sure that they understand what that is. And frankly, we should share it, Levon, beyond the referees to coaches and to our members so that everybody sort of knows what that rule is. Yeah, I mean, I think the first thing we really want to say about this, and I'm saying it last, so apologies for that, but athlete safety is huge. We want to do what's going to protect athletes. We just want to make sure that what is worn is not going to unnecessarily create risks for other athletes. And we are going to send some more information to you out about that in terms of what your discretion is.
All right, this next one is on club play, and I think getting towards maybe sports specialization, but some high school age water polo players want to play club water polo 12 months a year. Does USA Water Polo support clubs offering 12 months of water polo to high school age players each year?
Yes.
Figured we did. All right. Let's see. Would USA Water Polo rather see A, one or two large clubs dominating a metropolitan area, or B, a large number of smaller clubs in same area?
If somebody else wants to take this, they can. My first quick answer on that is, this is about markets, okay? So, for example, swimming runs kind of a monopolistic market in their system where they provide a territory to a club, and it's a different set of regulations regarding clubs in terms of how that governing body operates. Our system, and particularly because water polo was a much smaller sport with a lot less competitive clubs nearby, has been what I would call a free market system, where clubs can open and compete with each other, and it's up to the consumer, i.e. the athlete or the athlete's family, to make a decision about which club they want to go to. That does mean competition. In my experience, I would say that the competition, I think, at least for the last dozen years I've been here, has really benefited the sport. It's clubs that have not been as good, that have had competitive clubs go against them, have actually improved to come up and meet the standard of whatever the new challenge was, kind of the way markets work. And I think it's actually been a positive for growth. And one of the things we may want to look at some point is whether we're beginning to reach a critical mass where we're large enough now that we might increase more regulation on clubs. But in general, we've had a free market system as opposed to a heavily regulated system, and I think it's generally served us well. Does anybody else on the board or want to comment on that?
Testing. Okay. My opinion, it really is filtered by growing the sport. And, we just want more people doing it. That's half of our mission statement. And clearly that means, we want to have more clubs, more people doing, whether or not it's, so we'd rather have a bunch like 5 clubs that have 200 people in it in one metropolitan area versus 5 clubs that have, 15 people in it. Obviously, we want more larger stuff, but we clearly, as I think Chris was alluding to, we're not looking for monopolies in marketplaces. And what encourages clubs, or we're at least finding in the Northeast zone, we want to encourage all the clubs in our area to grow. We want to do whatever we can to have all the clubs. And when you're in an outpost like some of the spots we are in the East Coast, when they're starting, they're small, but we want them to get bigger. And so we're trying to, so it's not a matter of like we're encouraging large clubs, but we want more people. We want a lot of bigger clubs or medium-sized clubs, just more people doing it in general.
I'll add 2 cents. I am from Pittsburgh, so I wasn't born with a silver spoon in Greenwich, just so everybody knows that. And I started the club that's still there for 40 years later. But I would say in the first of all, I agree with Chris, laissez-faire, you guys, you run the clubs, we don't. But if I was a zone chair and I wanted to see growth in my zone, what really matters when you're isolated is being able to get a game without driving for 4 hours. So, and that applies to a whole lot of the country. So if you want to have competition, which we all do, having multiple clubs so that you could get a game, or multiple high schools, so you can get a game half an hour away, no overnight trips, all of those things, is incredibly valuable to growing the sport. So I would just say to the zone chairs who are out in the areas that are, out and not have much concentration, anything you can do to stimulate additional clubs so people can get local competition should help you grow the sport.
Yeah, and one more reflected on that. There's 2 things that really drive me and energize me to stay with our sport. I'm very interested in growing our sport, getting more people do it, but also secondarily, I want us to be playing at a higher level, not only in the East Coast, Midwest, or whatever, but even in California. So, and to get that higher level competition, you need more higher level teams to play against. I mean, winning and playing games and winning by like 18-5 doesn't do any side of the team any good. But having a number of really high quality games, like a lot of times in California, you'll have 3 or 4 games in a week, and if you're not playing at your very best, you're going to lose the game. But some of these regions, ours included, you have some team matchups When you win by such a lopside, no one really wants that. We want good, solid games. We want to improve as we're going along. And so you need more higher level clubs.
Are you saying that water polo coaches are not working collaboratively together with their colleagues? Well, as a member of the SOPAC zone and in your neighborhood, I'd be happy to come and sit with your zone board and talk about that. It's not that we're have hard, fast rules against this. And look, it's really important to say, we understand one size doesn't fit all, okay? Different regions have different issues and different problems. That is for sure. But I do think competition, and one other point that my colleagues didn't make that I think is an important one here is, the other thing about having more local competition generally means rivalries. And in sport, rivalries are fuel. They're like rocket fuel when you have somebody you really care about beating. And I think it's a good thing. But I'll come by sometime. I'll buy the coffee.
This might be a little bit related to that, but what can USA Water Polo do to protect clubs in over-impacted areas from new clubs popping up?
Yeah, well, I think that is the best. That's the same question, and the answer is the laissez-faire answer, which is that USA Water Polo is generally would not like not to be a regulator. We would like to be a market maker. So we would like clubs, by the quality of the programs they put out and by the competition among clubs, to actually help each other by competing get better, right? We all get stronger by competition. That's what sports does. I think to a great degree, that's what clubs do. I think where we would begin to have a problem if we felt there was some degree of unfair competition, if there was funny business going on in the way that those things worked out, that's for now more of a cause of concern.
This next one is related to college. Can or is USA Water Polo willing to give links and resources to all college programs across the country, D1 through 3 NAIA, CWPA club, junior colleges with links to athletic websites and with current and updated colleges, coaches and contacts?
Since I think that exists, I'm going to let John Abdu tell you where to find it.
And I would add to that, John, yeah.
And one more
That's a way to
question.
get your problem solved.
What about clubs, John? Are
I
the
was just going to
clubs?
say, I don't think we list all of the club programs. I think we can make an effort to list those. I think the contact info for club programs could
There's a
prove
search
difficult
mechanism for that, though.
given the turnover. Those are student organized groups. Yeah.
Just the CWPA website has the collegiate club list.
So we can just connect to that, I think, probably. Yeah. All right. On to concussion talk. This is specific to current lawsuit. What is the status? Is it 1, still under litigation, 2, settled but terms are sealed, or option 3, settled but terms not sealed? If answer is 3, what were the terms?
I think I'm going to turn that over to Richard Esterkin since we have the value of his opinion here, but maybe grab a mic, Richard.
The lawsuit is still pending before the Ninth Circuit. There's a petition for rehearing that was filed, give or take a week to 2 weeks ago, and that was joined by an amicus brief on behalf of.
On behalf of the Association of Chief Executives of Sport, which basically is a group of which I'm a member, which is like the top 65 sport governing bodies in America.
And
So
so-
soccer, lacrosse, everything.
And so the petition for rehearing is still pending before the court.
All right, next question has to do with financials. USA Water Polo Foundation has operated separately from the corporation for over 25 years. What is the basis for consolidating the finances of the foundation and of USA Water Polo? Why was a separate foundation created and now 4 years later it is to be dissolved?
I'll take that one. First of all, we're not consolidating and never have the financials with the foundation. So that's number one. That's not correct. And that will not happen in the future. We had gotten an opinion from our auditor saying that was the appropriate way to show the financials. We went through that back and forth over the last couple of years. We made some bylaw changes to the foundation bylaws, and the auditors now agreed that there's no need to consolidate the financials. I will say, in addition, there was great confusion about this and much happiness generated in cyberspace. But I want to be really clear. There was never an objective for USA Water Polo to have any control over the money in the US Water Polo Foundation, okay? Never. So the consolidation of financials was something requested by our auditors. It led to a qualified opinion from our auditors for a couple of years, even though there were no other issues. And we resolved it in September last year. So there never was any consolidation of financials and will not be.
And Mike, could I just make one additional point? The point is, what do we mean by financials? The auditor, and this is common practice there are a whole bunch of governing bodies that got money from the '86 Olympic Games. Everybody got $1 million, right? And many of them set up foundations so that there was sort of a heat shield in case of litigation to keep the money safe. The request from the auditor was not to consolidate the money. The auditor wasn't saying, and we were not saying, the money from the foundation should be commingled with USA Water Polo. They were simply saying that because it was a supportive foundation of USA Water Polo, that for transparency, it was important because essentially there were more assets that USA Water Polo had than it was representing. So it needed to show what those assets were. So we were simply asking to show the information of how much money with audited financial statements by the foundation were on the books. It ended up getting resolved a different way, but just to reemphasize what Mike said, this wasn't about the money changing. It was simply about transparency and simply showing the actual financials and doing it on our books because it was a supportive foundation.
All right, next.
It's an IRS definition, by the way, and it's GAAP accounting, and it's beyond me.
Next question has to do with high school growth. How can USA Water Polo help fund, assist, and start up high school water polo and club teams?
Well, I think I'm in the Texas region, and our experience there has been, multifold. We're lucky to have Joe Linehan from USA Water Polo living in Dallas, working with local high schools, working with the clubs throughout the state, throughout the zone, to facilitate the formation of new teams and new programs. And so that's worked out very, very well. I think, for instance, in North Texas, 10 years ago, I think we might have had a couple of high school teams. At this point, we probably have 60, 70, 80, Joe, something like that in North Texas alone, and have added several clubs along the way. I've personally been involved in starting 2 of those clubs. But USA Water Polo's role is really as a facilitator. We really need, great people who are passionate about the sport on the ground to, make this happen, to get the coaches together, to get, the refs involved. And USA Water Polo, I think, has provided, fantastic support in professional development and, really kind of bringing the pieces together and everybody communicating. So, and starting events and that sort of thing. So it's really a community effort, it takes a village kind of thing. USA Water Polo can provide a lot of advice for people who are interested in starting clubs, and a lot of, good feedback in terms of things that have worked and not worked for other places. So it's a high priority for USA Water Polo to do this, and that's really what we've done in Texas.
Just to add, I know I'm on the other side of the podium, Mike, but there is on our website a whole bunch of information about how to start a club, sample documents, all kinds of things like that. And then there's also grants available. So if somebody's trying to start a club that they represent is going to help grow the sport in a certain area, and they have a plan for how they want to do that, they can submit grant proposals, and those will be reviewed. And we do put money, or in some cases equipment, out to try to help people. And we're also looking for people who like to do events, who might, a starting up club that might also want to try to help become a local organizing committee for an event in an area. That's another way that we can work together with you.
We can also help at the high school level by talking to state athletic associations about possibly making it an official high school sport, which generally really helps in terms of creating interest as long as the school has a pool. So that's another thing that's being done. It's been done in multiple states so far, and we're having some good success with that.
This is a membership-related question. The fall membership promo, is this available for referee members? And if not, can we make it available?
Maybe in conjunction with the rookie referee program, for example, something like that.
This is another one, and I hope I'm reading this correctly, but it has to do with membership upgrades. When someone purchases or renews their membership after November 1st, and then you get the following year included, their membership doesn't upgrade for the current year. As an example, if you were to renew, let's say, a silver in 2018, it looks like maybe the question is like, maybe you can chime in on this. On membership growth and sport growth, where is the focus of growth right now for USA Water Polo? What age range, and is there a particular state? The last assembly, Texas, was mentioned multiple times.
Bill, you want to do that?
Was the question location?
Age range and/or location.
Well, I'll start certainly with the age range. The number one spot, and the thing that is encouraging to me when you see the growth, is really at whether you call it the top of the pyramid or the funnel or the bottom of the funnel, and that is we want to get the youngest kids involved. And there's a number of reasons for that. Not only do you have a longer lifetime value of that person, family involved with the sport, so many more years, but also you're going to get a lot of times, in the local markets, we have competition from swim teams, swim coaches. I don't know if anyone here has any issues with swim coaches. But one of the things that we've found is when you come in and It's really hard to come up against the swim coaches, say, I don't want this, I want him to swim, he's not going to do water polo, can't do this other stuff. There's one constituent that is stronger than the swim coach and go up against, and that is the parent and the child themselves. So if you get them in early and they start coming in, they start falling in love with the sport the same way we do, and they get in and the swim coach says, well, we don't want you to do this, they're going to get some pushback. It's not going to be pushback from a water polo coach, or it's going to be a pushback from the parent who's paying the bill over there, and it's pushback from the athlete, the child who wants to get in. The best spot to grow the sport is starting from the bottom. It is extremely hard, and I know this from a lot of experience, extremely hard to go in on a high school level and say, I'm going to pull your swim team out and go to pull this athlete and start putting them over there. Not only are they starting later, but it's baked. It's a lot harder to do that. Also, what I'd like to be able to see more that we're doing is with the splash ball that we're doing. You know, if we can incorporate that into a learn to swim, the swim industry, if you will, has had a natural lead system forever and ever, and that's called learn to swim. And so it's always go in, learn to swim, go in, and where they go next, they go to the swim team. Now, if we get in, learn to swim, we're doing some things with the splash ball. They get in, so they can see that there's an option at a very early age. And so as I started my comment, I'm extremely encouraged that the fastest growing age group that we have is really the 10 and under. At least that's been the last several quarters or so. And seeing that should be, and I'd like to see that to be our largest one, because although we do get a lot as we get into the high school level, but certainly you want to have fast growth at the youngest level. It's the easiest spot for us to get people hooked and keep them involved.
And on the Texas, that's great, Bill. And on the Texas piece, I would just say we have made a commitment to do a lot of events and things in Texas, because it was our belief that we've trying to kind of spread our meager resources around. And although we still try to do some of that, we thought we might have a bigger impact if we masked some of them with a really serious target. And Texas is a big state. One of the things that's really inciting is Chris Cullen, who's here, I think, somewhere, right, actually got the swim coaches to support making water polo a varsity sport there. So we've been making a very serious effort, because, 300-400 new teams for water polo just in the state of Texas if the UIL formally adopts, and we've been working with them to try to make that happen. And we thought that we also would learn a lot from the experience of really trying to go all in one place and learn from that experience, which we would like to transfer to additional states once we crack Texas and it goes varsity.
Now a couple of questions about ODP. The first one was just confirming that there is scholarship opportunities for ODP athletes from low-income families. That's available at on the ODP section of the USA Water Polo website. Correct. So that's there. And then the next part of this, while technically not pay to play, if a family requests and qualifies for assistance, don't you agree that the high cost of participation for ODP, from the fee for the Zone 1-day tryout to the fee for the camp to mandatory gear to travel costs in excess of $1,000, plus the ODP National Championship, plus significantly more expectation of fundraising if they make a training team, those costs, in our opinion, do they cause families and athletes to not even try out, reducing the talent pool of what is supposed to be our national team selection pipeline?
So first of all, there is scholarship in ODP. So that's the first thing. Just as there are scholarships with the Shielding membership for all members. If you are in a federal lunch program, free lunch program, that sort of thing, you're eligible for greatly reduced membership and greatly reduced participation or a pass in ODP. So there's no reason that you cannot, because of financial difficulties or circumstances, I should say, be able to participate in ODP. The only other thing I would say about this, and I'll put it briefly, but we've heard today about a lot of things we need to do and that we can do better. And those things require resources, and it's frankly across a very broad spectrum of things that we wish to do. And that at the same time, it would be nice to be able to do it all for free, but we can't. So we try to set pricing reasonably for what we do. We look at what other governing bodies do in a lot of areas, and I think in many ways we're less expensive in many aspects than other sports are. But we are sensitive to it for sure. As I mentioned in my initial remarks, I mean, USA Water Polo went upside down for quite a while because I think it didn't have confidence in its product and its pricing power. So it's always a balance. It's always a balance. And I would say the market tells you something, but the fact that we've continued to grow is a key indicator for us that for most people it's working, and we have added these programs that that did not used to exist to provide special support for financially challenged families and athletes.
We received quite a few rules questions, but I think John addressed a lot of those after the fact, including the rule on the attack from behind inside 6 meters, and also about getting involved in perhaps having influence over NCAA and NFHS rules. So we'll move on from those. This next one is a 6-part bonanza about the training center. So let me get through this here. What are the current plans for continuing and ongoing facility expenses? There's a concern among membership that a state-of-the-art facility, once built, becomes an ongoing liability for USA Water Polo for upkeep and maintenance. Here are the 6 questions. Is there a design? Is there a cost estimate? What is it? How much contingency is in the estimate? What will be the O&M budget? If costs exceed estimate plus contingency, where will the money come from? And where will the funding come from, if not from current operations? I can repeat those as needed.
We're going to do it down there. Yeah, your side of the table.
Great question. Somebody must have an MBA out there. So I'm going to ask you to repeat them one at a time.
That's fair. Is there a conceptual design?
Yes, there are some. I guess there are probably a few. Nothing that's been settled on yet.
Is there a cost estimate, and what is it?
Yes, there's a cost estimate, but I wouldn't say it's refined. It's probably in the $40 to $50 million range.
Is there a contingency in the estimate, and how much is it?
Yeah, general is most construction projects. There's something like 10% contingency, but again, not refined yet.
What will be the O&M budget?
Chris, maybe you take that one. You're closer to that.
We're kind of talking here about a concept as opposed to a reality. So I'm going to go back to what I said in my speech and what I said in an earlier answer. The operations is a huge concern. Not going to go into this unless it's a public-private partnership and unless we have a solid partner in going forward with it that's going to help us mitigate our risk and put this in a solid situation. I would think what we're looking at is, starting out probably somewhere about $1.5 million a year in operation cost. But again, this would all be separate, either restricted in ours or set up as a separate company, so it would not impact USA Water Polo in our operations.
The next part, and this might kind of dovetail with that, but if costs exceed estimate plus contingency, where will the money come from? And then the last part of it is, where will the funding come from, if not current operations?
That's a hypothetical. I don't know what to say to that. Look, once we get into this, we're going to have to cover the costs, and we expect to do it. The board has paid very close attention to the operations side of this, as well as the capital side. And, we've done a lot of studies. We've benchmarked other pools, and we'll see. It's hypothetical, and once we commit, we're going to have to take care of it. We think we've done proper diligence. Things happen, they happen, and we'll deal with it.
On to zones. What are some initiatives that zones have implemented to gain revenue?
Well, I mean, the standard is jail qualifications is a property, right, that zones do for revenue for sure, with entry fees. And I think there's different philosophies among the different zones in terms of, sort of what their zone qualifications cost. There's leagues that zones run. There's special events that zones run. These all throw off revenue. And it's kind of a question about the philosophy of the zone in terms of how you want to price things and to what degree you want to maybe generate more income than something actually costs to use that income for another good. Like, for example, say you wanted to start some splash ball programs somewhere or provide some club assistance. Maybe the Qualls has a little bit of extra on the cost to participate in it, and you take that extra and you put it toward these other programs. But this is a question really for zones to make decisions themselves. I think you heard before Stephanie saying if anybody wanted to talk about fundraising with zone projects, certainly in Texas, we've talked with them a little bit about this kind of thing. So you have a certain amount of discretion in what you do at the zone level. And frankly, looking at the zone accounts, which are in our financial statements, if you want to look at them, they've actually gone up over the years. So zones, since in the dozen years I've been here, have actually amassed more capital than they had when I started.
And I would encourage you, if you have surpluses in your zone, please put them to work. Invest in the sport. Hire somebody to help start new clubs. Hire somebody to talk to high schools. If you have money, please put it to work. To let it sit there doing nothing does no benefit for anyone.
Let's see here. Question about Masters. Any ideas on getting Masters athletes re-engaged in zones besides just having tournaments?
No.
Yeah.
I think it's a great idea. So let's think about it. I think if there's good people out in the zones that are interested in water polo, we need to figure out collectively how to engage them and pull on the same rope. So we don't really have a formal program for that, but I think it's a fantastic idea, and I think the zones should be thinking about that and doing it and sharing best practices.
Yeah, I might, just in my brief experience with Masters, I find that Masters clubs or Masters teams within a club have a pretty wide variety of access to pools. And I think, the question was beyond tournaments, but really like playing, whether it's informal scrimmages or other games, is kind of the way that I've seen Masters teams engage the most. So if you are a club that has a Masters program and good access to pool, or just some Masters team out there that does have regular access to water, I think the onus, I would appreciate the onus being on that group to actually try to host gatherings of teams to scrimmage, play official tournaments, whatever form it takes. Because there's a lot of groups out there in my experience that just don't have, they get a couple hours on a Saturday, let's say. And so to be able to go spend a day with other teams competing is kind of what they're thirsting for. So that would be my ask of the groups that do have access to more water.
Yeah, and just one more thing. In Dallas, I'm a member of the Dallas Water Polo Club, and a lot of our members have been mentoring, reffing, coaching youth clubs, and they really enjoy doing it. And it's a great dynamic because, we get to see these kids that they've kind of been introduced to water polo on our watch, grow up, go to high school, go to college, come back ultimately as Masters players. It's a great dynamic in our sport, I think. And I think we just need, I'm sure that's going on in other places around here. So that's one of the things I love the most about the sport, actually. So I really think it's a great idea.
Just to kind of piggyback off that, I run a club in an under-resourced area, and I've had Masters teams reach out to me and, can we have a tournament? Can the proceeds go to your club? Or can we come out and do an event with your kids? So I think trying to engage the Masters, maybe in community engagement, is a way to get them to give back to the sport that they still want to connect with, and just another way to make everyone feel better.
That was perfect. That was actually going to be my point, that Masters is sometimes it's about exercise, but a lot of it is about community and playing with friends or competitors and continuing those relationships. So even beyond competition, like being able to set up events where people can just get together and connect. I think that that's also a great resource for us to pull. Like, I've recruited coaches out of Masters teams as well to help with younger kids and start new programs. So that's a really good pool for us.
Next question is related to the board of directors. Why is it that the USA Water Polo Board has 8 of 15 members who currently live in California, and all members are either from California, Texas, or the Northeast, living large parts of the country unrepresented?
Good question. We're actively looking for people for other geographies. We'd like to have someone from the Midwest, certainly like to have someone from Florida. Northwest would be great as well. So if you have people that are interested, please refer them to us. We're not sorting them out. We just don't have anyone raising their hand that wants to be involved that could add value. So it's not just geography we're looking for. We're also looking for a set of skills that would be helpful, that would complement the skills we already have. And we're also looking actively for more board members for their financial resources. That has proven to be the best source for us for fundraising. We're also looking for other kinds of diversity besides geographic and skill-based.
And I would also add, and I agree with everything Mike said, and we absolutely are, but I would also just remind us that we're 70% of our membership is based in California. That's actually down from like close to 80% when I came, but it's still 70% of the membership. So actually the board representation is less representative of the California market, if you want to think about it that way.
This next question is about concussions. Someone shared an article recently about the lawsuit involving concussions with USA Water Polo. The basis of the suit was a lack of a concussion policy and enforcement. Can you elaborate on the concussion policy and how it is disseminated to the coaches, officials, and club administrators?
Chris, that's you.
I think I'm going to give that one to Richard.
Chris is pointing to me, though.
Richard, that's you.
I think to the extent that we have a concussion policy, it's a combination of a number of things. It's first education. For a number of years now, with each membership renewal, all members get with their membership cards and the other materials that you get when you renew, a heads-up concussion sheet that describes the symptoms of a concussion so that there should be awareness of concussions and symptoms so that you can recognize concussions when they occur, to the extent that somebody who suffers a concussion demonstrates the symptoms of a concussion, which is not always the case. So that's one aspect of it. A second aspect of the education program is that there are links on the USA Water Polo website to additional concussion information if you choose to look into it more deeply, specifically links, I believe, to the Center for Disease Control, which has concussion information. So there's an educational component to it. Secondly, the existing rules prohibit coaches from returning players to play after suffering a significant injury, for example, and it refers to a concussion. So there's just a blanket prohibition on return to play if a player does suffer a concussion. And then the rules also preclude the coach from returning a player to competition absent a signed medical clearance from a medical professional. So we've handled it in that way so that it's clear that an athlete has received medical attention from a professional and that the professional has made the judgment that it's okay for that athlete to return to play. The question was just generally what the concussion policy was?
And then how is it distributed and shared with?
Right, and so once again, when members renew their membership, part of the membership contract is that you've read the rules governing conduct, which include these prohibitions on premature return to play and the requirement of a medical certificate to return to play following a concussion.
Thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry. That's the other thing I forgot. Mike just mentioned. The final point on that is that all coaches are required to undergo first aid training, which includes training in recognizing concussions, so that there is someone that, at a minimum, that's had some training in concussion recognition who's overseeing all of the athletes who are USA Water Polo members.
This one's on sport growth. What can water polo fans do to help grow the sport? What will make the biggest impact?
Jessica wants to do that.
Thanks, Mike. What can fans do? So I think that the first thing they can do is show up to games and cheer for whether it's kids or national teams or whatever, but see what we can do to fill the stands and get educated. I think, I don't know, I made a water polo bingo once to try to get friends who didn't know anything about our sport to like get excited about the game, and it was really fun. I heard someone say, "Oh, was that a donut shot?" And I was like, or a 5-meter shot, and I turned around like, how did they know that word? And I forgot I had made the game for them. But I don't know. That's just, I don't know if you guys have other thoughts, but I think our sport is so interesting and so fun, but it can also be a bit exclusive for people, obviously, that don't understand what's going on. And only so much can be done with changing rules. And so the more we in the stands can help people around us get to know what's happening or get to know the players in the pool, et cetera, I think it will be great.
Yeah, I think Jess, I remember being at that game. She brought over her business girlfriend. So, I mean, going to games but bringing 10 new friends, right? Or all our national team athletes should have 50,000 followers because we have 50,000 members, and I don't think they all have 50,000 followers. So I think that, right? So I think little steps like that we can control and we can contribute to under small steps. So I think that all helps. I mean, it's not going to change it overnight, but we all do something together, small steps, we can push it along.
If I could add one point, the largest fan base in USA Water Polo are parents coming to watch their kids. When we do any of our marketing out there, we're marketing to parents. We're marketing because like a 6-year-old, a 5-year-old, they'll do what the parent tells them to do. So try this out. We know it's a try of like one of maybe 4 or 5 different sports that the child is trying, but we want to show them that this is, what is the advantages for the child growing up through the sport. We want to present it as a viable option against our competition, which is in our market is lacrosse, soccer, basketball, that sort of thing. And so it's really, we're talking about what can fans do, but we want to grow that fan base. But the biggest and the ripest fan base are the parents, and get them educated and bring them along.
And I would just add to that from a social and digital standpoint, since Brenda mentioned it, watch the games that we show, engage with the content that we share. Everyone in this room thinks water polo should be on TV. Every person I've ever run into will wonder, why is cornhole on television? Why is this on television? And then we show a game and there's only 1,000 viewers, but we have how many people that love the sport and want it to be on TV. And the first question that a TV network asks us when we ask them to put a game on TV is, well, how many people watch what you already have? And then we give them a very sad number, and then we don't have the game on TV. So the more we can all kind of help ourselves, to everyone up here's point, that will certainly help. That's a free way to do it. It costs you nothing to like a post or click on a YouTube link, assuming you have an internet connection. But Starbucks is free. So
just one more thing,
yeah.
if you really are interested, maybe try reffing. Go to a reffing clinic. Maybe see if somebody needs help on the as an assistant coach or a club administrator. So there's lots of ways to get involved. The infrastructure in places like outside of California in particular is always needing some more support. So I think if a fan wants to become a part of the ecosystem, I think that's a great idea as well.
And just time for a couple of more questions here as we have our development summit upcoming here. We want to get to that. A national team question here. Will Olympians do an Olympic tour in 2020? What is that tour and marketing plan to celebrate our Olympians? And I gather that could maybe a pre-thing or it could even be a post-Olympics event.
So I'll just take the crack at that, which is this is something that we've wanted to do in the past. We've been cost constrained. I think Adam, something on his end, would love to do. And this time we're going to start earlier, having to talk about how to do it, so we can come up with a plan that we hope we can execute. But we don't exactly have that plan yet. But I think it would hit a lot of the things people talked about here in terms of getting the national teams out, being seen in more places, and doing things like that. It's something we really want to do.
And I'll just say that the last time the teams did the tour on the East Coast, or they went up to Greenwich in Florida, the response I heard from the teams, going back to fan experience, they were so excited that the teams out there were like out there cheering them on. They knew their names, they made signs, and it was a very inspirational moment for the national team athletes heading off to the Olympics. So I encourage you, if teams do end up coming to your area, like, it's a big event for them. Make it a big event for the kids that you're working with. It will definitely be appreciated. Someone called me or texted me during the Olympic Games, and they said, that was a really hard game for me, but I remembered the kids that were holding a sign for me when we were playing in Greenwich, and that helped me get through the game. So for what it's worth, that was very cool.
And one more pitch, raise some money. Call up, say we want you to come. Costs a lot of money for 2 teams to travel somewhere. Raise some money locally, people be delighted.
All right, our last question is along the lines of Positive Coaching Alliance and the safe sport related issues. But what plans do we have, if any, to extend positive coaching to spectator behavior, sportsmanship, bullying, blaming, shaming? These things not acceptable. Spectator conduct, referee behavior, player contact, all of that extra stuff.
I can speak a bit to the Positive Coaching Alliance content and messaging. They actually have a lot of both training and kind of reading materials related to those very topics. I'm not fully up to speed on the extent of our partnership with them and what training we require members or encourage members to go through, but those are resources that if you do want to get them embedded in your club or zone or both, the Positive Coaching Alliance would be more than happy to help you get connected with the right set of materials. A lot of it's online. It's very good. There's modules. It's on our website as well. There's modules designed for both the athletes, coaches, and importantly, the parents as well. So a lot of the sideline stuff you're asking about is often on the deck as well. That's my pitch for PCA. I'm on their board too.
Awesome, Peter. I do want to say one thing about that, which is, the other thing is the people in this room. Okay, you're the leadership of your regions, and you set the tone. And so ultimately, when you really look at what PCA is, it is about encouragement rather than shaming. It's about helping kids to reach their potential, and it's about doing it in a civil and constructive and encouraging way. And I would say, I would put a challenge. You've put a lot of challenges out to us today, and I'm going to have plenty to keep us busy to try to meet some of your expectations, but I'll put a challenge out to you, which is to really, at the zone board level, ask yourselves, how can we create a more positive culture around our sport? How can we work with our coaches and our officials to build something together here where we really are nurturing our athletes, our teams, our clubs, and our entire ecosystem and culture for what we are to be better? That's really what we're talking about here. The tools are there. Some of the clubs, I see Ed Reynolds from SoCal here, they made a deal. They do Positive Coaching Alliance every year and require that training for all their parents. So that's one end of the spectrum. But I really believe and would really challenge each of you at the zone board level to really focus on this issue of conduct, encouragement, and nurturing for water polo in your areas. I think you can all, with us, make a very, very big difference. And it will help our sport, and it will help grow it, and it will help it thrive.
Excellent. Well, that's all for our Q&A. Thanks for all those questions. I think we got to about 80% of them, so I appreciate everyone sending those in. Any final thoughts from the group up here as we kind of close things out?
Anyway, thank you for your questions. Thank you for asking. Thanks for contribution to grow the sport, for everything we do. And, you know, we're here to serve you. If you've got suggestions, you have questions, don't be shy. Thanks.
Excellent. Well, thanks. That concludes our assembly portion. So thanks everyone here, those watching at home. A lot more coming. Our development summit is on the way. Our national awards dinner tonight, and of course more development summit and referee school action tomorrow. But that is all for now. Appreciate everyone joining us.